Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this here is a podcast I do in two different forms. First of all, it is available in a video visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels. And if you want to take it around and listen to it wherever the hell you want to, like an actual podcast, you can also listen to it in a audio-only form. Simply look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, one of my main podcasts is Mod Chat, where I come on here at least once a month and I talk to you all about things that I find cool, interesting, fun, funny, what have you, with maybe a little bit of show and tell in the world of video game modding and video game console modding. This is not that, though. This here is Mario's Minute, where I come on here once a month, sometimes with a guest, sometimes not. I try and cycle it out to be every other month, and I come on here and I talk to you all about whatever the hell I want to. It's pretty low-key. There's not really any production value behind this here, and it's more just me talking to you all. And the people who do listen to this really seem to enjoy it, and for you all who seem to enjoy it, I really do appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. So that's kind of how it is. If you haven't tuned into another Mario's Minute episode before, welcome. But let's go ahead and get into some of the topics here, which I don't have too much of, but I did want to touch up on this here. And I will say this here, I don't really bring this up all too much, and I am explicitly not trying to use this as a advertisement, but I more kind of just want to talk about this here publicly for a few minutes here. So if anybody has any questions about this in the future, I can kind of just direct them to this section of the episode. But this is in terms of some member content on the channel here and early access content. Now, for those who do not know, there is a little bit of a tip jar, so to speak, on YouTube, where for, I think, well over a year now, you can become a member of the channel, and different channels are going to have different perks and different tiers and such, and I mostly use mine as just kind of a tip jar, because over the years, people have wanted to donate, support, show love in some way, and it took me a while to even, start up any kind of donation or any kind of Patreon or what have you. I actually didn't really push it out or advertise it for the most part. You can find links and such, but I don't really do calls to action on it, because the thing, in all honesty, that I noticed with folks is that there were a lot of people who said, if you do this, I'll donate to you. If you do this here, I'll donate to you. If you make this video, I'll donate to you. If you help me out here, I'll donate to you. And I'll be honest, I don't like to do the quid pro quo thing. I don't want to be on the hook about stuff like that. Even the current donation methods I do have, I tell people, hey, look, this is not a thing of you pay me for my time to help you out or something. This is not like you put money in, you get tech support out. No. And if that was what you were understanding, my apologies on there. That is not explicitly or implied anywhere on here. And if that's not what you want, I recommend you withdraw your support. And that's what I tell people. And even before that, if people say they want to donate, I tell them, hey, please donate to your favorite tool or open source developer or something else that has helped out. I just move around things on a screen. I'm not the one who's behind these tools here. Please donate to the developers and the hosts behind these wonderful websites and stuff. I don't need it. I'm good. I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm good in regards to that. Either way, though, like I said, it was more the people who, at least from my experience, the people who were asking for things in return. Even if I did help them out and it was never for the money, I would typically say, I'm not trying to sell that, but if you need help, this is what you do. It was one-to-one. I never got anything from those people. And the people who have donated, not all of them, but for the most part, the people who donate, when, I message them, talk to them, they're just like, nah, I kind of just wanted to support you. That's it, man. Keep doing what you're doing, which is really thoughtful on there. So one thing I've done, at least on the YouTube side of house here, is you can have channel members, which again, I really haven't advertised, and it's been kind of more of a tip jar, but there are videos that I do upload in batches usually and in advance. So if I upload a video, when you're seeing it, I might have uploaded that video at least maybe the night before, sometimes even at most weeks or months before that. So it could be a older video that I have uploaded, because that's kind of just how I like to do my content. So in regards to that, I decided to kind of try and play around with this, not advertise it, and just see what was going on, in which I can now do early releases of videos to members only. So that means typically what I do when I set up my video, I do the metadata, the tagging, all that stuff. what I've been doing with several of my most recent videos is I just set them to members only first. So if you're a channel member, you do get to watch it pretty much a few minutes after I upload it. And it might be, days or weeks before public gets to upload it. But this is for me to clarify and say that I don't see myself ever making exclusively paywalled content, members only content, Patreon only content. There might be like messages or something, or like a Q&A or what have you, and it's usually text. But in terms of somebody thinking that, I'm going to do a full tutorial over something super cool and only keep it to paid members or Patreon members, I don't ever see myself doing that. I've been personally pretty against that. I kind of believe the information has to be freely out there, which is why it's been a little confusing when some people have seen some of those early access videos and they are not members. And I just want to clarify on that regard. If you do not support the channel like monetarily, that is totally fine. Again, this is not like a coded advertisement or anything. I promise you that. However, any videos that I do upload and put on a schedule, they are going to come out. So if you see a video that you're interested in and it is a members only video, if you wait, that video is going to come out. That is not going to be a member exclusive video for the rest of its lifetime. That's not how that goes. I try and upload my videos every Saturday, and for the most part, I'm able to do that, thankfully. Sometimes I do miss Saturdays for different reasons, and I don't know if I've done that this year. But it happens to all of us. But that's not to say I'm going to like pull a video down, unless there's like an error or an issue, or for some reason, something changed, I'm not able to release that video. That'd be the only time. But for the most part, if people are wondering about that, it's just like a cool little extra perk on there. People like getting early access to things. And if you do, if that is something that you're interested in, I personally don't see, how do I put it? I personally don't really see the need to watch those videos early on the channel. But if you do, totally cool. Or if you just want to wait, totally cool as well too. That's really all it is to it. It's not going to be anything that is completely exclusive to members. It's not like I'm paywalling or hiding off content and putting a price tag on it. Any videos that you're going to see that are listed as, members only or early access for members, that is all it is. It is early access to members. And if you wait around for another weekend, I will release it. Even some people have asked about some. If you just ask me, I can let you know. I'm just like, yeah, that's going to come out this Saturday, or that's going to come out next Saturday or something. So that's how it is there. So either way, with that little benefit out of the way, that's probably going to be the one and only time I really promote that or talk about it there. But there was something that I did note here, which I did want to discuss, which was the PSN outage, the great PSN outage of 2024. It was actually something I didn't really directly notice. It was more I was on Twitter, I was on social media, and I was seeing this. But for anybody who might have missed it here, on September 30th and even at the beginning October 1st, PSN was down worldwide. Now, I am looking at an article from PlayStationLifestyle.net in which they say here, I'll just read this. This is a global outage affecting all regions. So irrespective of where you are, you'll have trouble logging into the network and playing games online, among other things. According to the PSN status webpage, with the exception of PlayStation Direct, every network service is experiencing issues. The PS app is also not loading correctly at the time of this writing, and its associated services like PS Stars are also down. Earlier today, Sony said that a technical glitch caused PS5 consoles to become clogged with ads and unwanted content. That issue has since been resolved, with players joking that Sony broke something along the way, which that would not surprise me. There was an update to this quick article that says PSN came back online after approximately 7 hours. If you're still experiencing issues, contact Sony. And there's also another one saying that, yeah, PSN went down tonight. The outage began a few hours ago, has been acknowledged by Sony, but the issue has yet to be resolved at the time of writing. So that was kind of the original part right there. Either way, I did kind of want to highlight this because when I saw this kind of unfolding on social media, people were really freaking out about this and panicking because, they couldn't go online. And even what's worse, there were people who were playing single-player games or just chose to play single-player modes in games, but some games might have required always online access, or they didn't have the license, like that wasn't assigned as their home system, meaning they did not have the permanent license to play that game offline. So there were people who said, okay, I'm just going to play some single-player stuff, and then they would start playing single-player games, and within a few minutes they would get a notification saying, we could not connect to the service, we could not connect to the server to verify your that you have the license for this. And due to that, we're going to cut your play session within the next few minutes if you don't stop playing earlier. So there were people who were understandably upset looking at this, and they said, well, I can't even play my games. Like, I can't play any of these games that I thought I purchased that I was able to own and I was able to play on here. And that's also another thing as well, too, where we've been seeing more entities, Valve with Steam being the latest big one, that they are now changing how they type things and what they say on their store pages to reflect that when you purchase a game, you're not purchasing the game itself. You are purchasing a license, and while you have that license, you have the ability to play that game. But that license can be revoked because you do not own the game. You are essentially paying for a license to have the permission to play that game so long as you own the license. And there's stipulations with it. Like I said, in the terms of the PlayStation Network outage, let's say you have 2 PlayStation 5s. One of them is set to your home system. It was the first one you got. You have all your games downloaded on there. The licenses are on there. And let's say you have that one, I don't know, your cousin is borrowing it or something. So you have another system, you have it in your bedroom, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to play some single-player games. That system is not assigned to be your home console. And if you want to try and assign it to be your home console, well, you can't during that outage. So you're kind of doomed on that. And the reason why whenever these news stories happen, not every time, but a lot of times I like to talk about them on here, is because there's this kind of habit that happens where whenever these inconveniences happen, people kind of open up their eyes and they get really mad and they realize how inconvenient having digital only for everything can be, how inconvenient and how quickly you can have something taken away. I mean, we are getting to the point again where we're starting to see more and more legislature and more services that are just being honest and saying, when we sell you a digital good, we're not selling you the digital good. We're selling you a license to access the digital good, which I think is good. Not trying to say that too much. And it's not saying that I support the practice itself. It's more saying I support the transparency behind that. But more and more people, every time this happens, kind of get like slapped with the reality of this is what happens when you go all digital. This is a reality of the all digital future. You can't just grab a disc off the shelf, pop it in, and install it, because even then that's becoming harder as well too. There are people who do all digital, so they physically cannot do that, and even the people who do purchase discs and such, they might have a console that cannot accept discs. If they do, there's many games where the build itself on the disc is incomplete, or it is very out of date and very buggy. So even if you play the base version on the disc, you're going to be missing content, or you're going to have game-breaking bugs, or even maybe a little bit of both. That could happen as well too. But that's why I kind of try to bring this up, because people seem to forget this kind of overall. And I'm sure the people who are listening to this, because I'm going to be honest, hey, look, we're all kind of the oddballs here when we're into game console modding, video game modding, all that fun stuff. We're kind of some of the oddballs here. So we're going to understand, kind of the doom and gloom of that. But this is more for the people who say, oh, I don't care about that. I don't want to handle discs. It's so inconvenient. I like having all my systems there. I can always get my content at any time. PlayStation Network never goes down. Okay, if it goes down, I'll just play something solo. Okay, I'm just going to do this. These are realities. And we've seen this time and time again. This is nothing new. We just seem to see it on different systems here and there. Now, this one here, I will say this, for how much, and I feel like a lot of people have forgotten this already because that's kind of how the internet is with internet time, but this was only 7 hours, and people were pretty upset by this. You got to remember, in 2011, the PlayStation Network ended up going down for almost a month. And I'll just put it like this, because I actually do want to talk about it in more details later. But I'll put it like this. I don't think any major service, whether it's Steam or PlayStation Network or Xbox Live or Nintendo Switch Online, I don't think that would be acceptable for any other service to do. And some people even said, well, it wasn't acceptable back then. You're right, but people were calmer about it, I feel like. Like, people got pretty upset over like a 7-hour outage here that was unannounced, and then when it came back online, they were okay. But this was a month, and people were starting to vote with their wallets by the end of it when that happened in 2011. But I think the blowback would be much harsher, especially because everything is so much bigger, and with especially games as a service and all these extra like microtransactions and such that are with games, everyone would lose a lot. There's a lot to lose if any of these networks go down for 3 weeks or a month again. So that's all to say here that, remember, these services go down. You have licenses to play the games. You do not own the digital content that you own. And as long as you agree to that and you understand that, that is fine. And you might want to reconsider, completely abandoning ship on physical titles because of situations like this. And actually, due to that, I did want to bring up something that I did find interesting. So this was just real quick. It was about, the recent hurricanes that were hitting the United States and such. I had seen people posting about this, but something you wouldn't really expect is, whenever there's a natural disaster of some kind, people are going to be buying up as much, water, ramen, canned food, shampoo, conditioner, toiletries such as, toothpaste, toothbrushes, of course, toilet paper. That's a big one we all know about. We're probably still scarred by back in 2020. But one thing that was interesting to see, which admittedly did make me happy, not like in a bad way. It's not like I was like relishing at like, people's misfortune or something. It was something that I was like, this is good to have this highlighted here. It was that physical media at local Walmarts that were hit around areas where the hurricanes were, physical like Walmart locations barely had any physical media. So much of it, it's not because they weren't stocking it, but it's because so much of it was purchased. I'm talking video games. I'm talking the remaining CDs that they had. Vinyl, I'm sure, was there as well too. But Blu-rays and mostly DVDs. I know DVDs are old. DVDs are not HD anymore. DVDs do not look as good as Blu-ray. But would you believe that people were clearing out these sections because they needed some kind of entertainment while they were bunkered down at home, while they were going to lose or did not have reliable internet access? So this shows that in times like this, people are still going to be gunning after physical media, that there's going to be times where people do want physical media. There is going to be a need for it. And I'm a big physical collector. I do like having my games and my content physical. There has been some stuff that I've moved away from. Like I will say, for example, with movies, I can't really remember the last movie that I physically end up purchasing. And it usually has to be not just like a movie I find for cheap. It has to be a movie that I really, really, really love and want to have physically. Same with TV shows. TV shows a little more lenient on, but it has to be something I absolutely love physically. Music, I will say that's a big one for me as well too. I've actually really changed a lot of how I consume my music, where it's mostly digital, and that's because of a lot of artists that I listen to who really just release their content almost exclusively digital. But in terms of having physical media, I really only pick up, vinyl or CDs for artists and albums and projects that I absolutely love. The other thing could be as well too, I think maybe the exception is if I'm ever at a concert and there's some openers and they have CDs that they're selling and they're pretty affordably priced and I like the openers, I'll go and I'll purchase the CDs because I'm like, I get to actually meet the person who did this, talk to them, and I get to support them directly. It's just it's nice to be able to do that. So this is to say, there is going to be a digital-only future. I'm trying to hold off from it for as long as I can, but I do think we're going to be seeing comebacks in different ways, and I just feel like it might get to a point, unfortunately, that it might be a little too late. The example I show or I talk about is people with, well, again, a physical thing, but people with manuals who purchase brand new games. I would say sometime last generation, there was all these people who were saying, man, I really miss manuals in games. Remember when you'd open up a game and you'd read through the manual and you had a thick manual and they really dedicated to it, like they made it look like a journal or like a newspaper or something? Man, I really miss manuals. Like, what happened to that? And it's like, dude, you're too late. They did not phase out manuals in Generation 8. They did that in Generation 7. The time to complain about manuals being phased out has already passed. You should have been complaining about it during the Xbox 360 era when EA started shipping in toilet paper, essentially, where instead of thick manuals, they gave you a black and white insert that was no more than 4 pages. That's when you should have complained. When they completely took out manuals of many 360 PS3 games, that's when people should have complained more. But most people didn't even notice until several years later, brand new generation, brand new games, and a few years into that generation, they said, I miss manuals. It's been a while since I've seen one. It's been a while since I've seen one of those. They should bring it back. It's like, dude, that ship has sailed. And that's kind of what I'm afraid of with physical media on here. So that's why I still try to talk about this stuff, highlight it, but I do think that we are going to see a little bit of a renaissance. There was a huge renaissance with vinyl. Vinyl sales are actually down because CD sales are going up, but on the flip side, CD players in cars are really no longer a thing anymore. Unfortunately, this is probably news that most people haven't heard about, but some of the few companies that were creating stock, not like aftermarket such as like Pioneer or Kenwood or Alpine, and I don't even know if they make decks anymore, like decks with CD players, and then I'm not sure, but the ones that supply decks to like stock cars, like you, not like a race car, but like you buy a car fresh off the lot or something, and you have the option to have a CD player if you want to, that is pretty much gone now for brand new cars. There was pretty much one manufacturer that was left that was still making CD players for a few brand new cars, and they said, guys and gals, we cannot put CD players into cars anymore. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we have all these in-dash CD players and not a single company will purchase them from us anymore. We cannot renew any contracts. We cannot put them into new cars. We no longer have any customers at this point. No brand new car company wants them. So again, that's kind of, I have to specify that because some people might say, well, I can go to Crutchfield or I can go to Amazon right now and I can buy a brand new head unit right now and install it. Yes, you can, but I'm talking about with brand new cars, like starting in, like, I guess, technically be now 2025, 2026, you won't even have the option to put a CD player from the factory in any brand new car, is what I'm trying to say. So that's one of those things, that ship has sailed. So in the next 5 years, if people start saying, man, I really wish I could, buy a brand new car and I had the option to get a CD player, dude, the time to complain, the time to be loud about it has already passed. Now that it's become a memory, now you want to do something about it. So that's all to say, though, it's interesting to see kind of the sales patterns and prices and such on there because, like I said, vinyl sales have gone down. CD sales we're starting to see a renaissance of, which I'm really disappointed we even tried to completely cut out CDs to some extent because they're digital and they're nice. I don't really know about the cassette tape renaissance. I've never liked cassette tapes. Even back in the day, I did not like them. I like having like the dual deck and copying them and such, but like in terms of like cassettes themselves, I was never a fan of them. I really wasn't. So that's one of those things I've told people. I refuse to acknowledge a cassette tape renaissance, but that's kind of where we're at with physical media in regards to that, at least from my observations. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode here, but I did want to cover a few things that I do typically talk about at the ends of these episodes. One of them is going to be the games I'm currently playing. So there's been a few games that I've been playing here that I've been having, a pretty fun time with overall, and this seems to be pretty positive here. So my girlfriend and I were playing through Astrobot on the PS5 together. Since the last episode, I was able to finish it, and I have to tell you all, this is the greatest game I've played in a long time. It's one of the very rare and very few games I simply do not have any complaints about it. I really don't. I've introduced it to people. I've seen people play through bits of it when they've tried it out. I love seeing people's reactions to it overall. That's been really nice. But in terms of Astrobot itself, the only type of complaints I would even have wouldn't even be about the game itself. It's from my own skill set. So it's literally a skill issue here, which I did recognize. And it was a little bit frustrating at times because there are several challenges. There's several, frustrating parts of the game. But again, that is nothing unfair from the game itself. It is simply the skill level of the player, which in terms here, this is me. So skill issue. And I'll readily admit to that. I'm not going to pull a dark side Phil in that and be like, oh, this game is cheating. This is unfair. No. I just have to get good. That's the only thing. But I did finish it. fantastic game overall. Honestly, one of the best games I've played in so long, and something that I have been telling people to play. Like, if you have, I'm of the opinion, if you have a PS5 and you have not played Astrobot, like you haven't even tried it, you gotta play it. Like, even one of my brothers, he had played it at one point, because he didn't try it before, and he was like, dude, yeah, what's up with Astrobot? Because, like, I look online and people are saying it's like the best game ever. It's like the best game ever made. That's what people are trying to say. Or it's like the best game this year, or the best game in like several years. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way Astrobot is that good. And I'm like, dude, they're not lying. Like, I can put it on for you. I got the disc. I can put it on for you. You can try it. But like, those people are not lying. They're saying it's one of the best games ever because it really is one of the best games ever. I will also say that all of the references in the game absolutely make it better. Like, it really helps. It provides a lot more like history and just joyous moments and being able to smile and laugh about things. So I really think it's great that the team was able to have access to pretty much every Sony license that they wanted to be able to put things in, such as a Crash Bandicoot Astrobot, or Lara Croft being chased by a T-Rex, or Leon being ganged up on by a zombie while trying not to break a vase. Things like that are really cool to me. So even with that, though, even if you don't really pick up on the references, I still think it's a fantastic game just because it becomes a learning opportunity. And I think the thing I relate to with that, with the references, are years ago. This is when the first South Park RPG came out. I had to specify which one just because the Stick of Truth, it's it. But there's been several South Park games before. In my opinion, the South Park RPG, the Stick of Truth, that was the first good one, like truly good one that came out. And I remember when it came out, I was having such a good time with it. That's one of those games, it made me cry, because I was laughing so hard, and I was doubled over in stitches to the point where I cried. Like, I cried playing that game, which is how good it was. But it was funny because myself and my other friends who love South Park, we were playing the game, we were talking about it, we thought it was one of the funniest games ever. But there was one person I talked to who said, oh man, I've been playing this game. This game is incredible. I'm laughing every 5 minutes. I absolutely love this game. And the crazy thing is, I've never even watched South Park. And friends and I are just like, okay, one, that speaks to how good the game is, but two, oh my goodness, like, you have to watch South Park. You have to watch it because the game, it has so many references, big and small, in there. And the problem is, you are ruining your enjoyment of it right now. Like, it's still great that you're enjoying it, but I can guarantee if you watched the series, if you actually picked up on the references, the game would be about 8 times funnier than it is to you right now. But the fact that you still find it hilarious and that you're really enjoying yourself shows that it's truly a good game, even if you don't pick up the references. So that's how I feel about Astrobot, at least. After that, we end up playing another game here, which we only got like a few hours in, so we do need to revisit it. That's kind of what happens sometimes. But my girlfriend and I started playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which she had actually played like the first like maybe 1 or 2 levels of at one point, but I had never played it. I actually didn't even own the game until this year. It was one of those titles, and I talked about this at one point. There were several fantastic games that came out last year, and either I did not play them or I only played them for like 30 minutes. Some of them were like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Tears of the Kingdom. Those games I only played about 30 minutes of each. It was just, I had so much going on at that time in my life. I couldn't really consume or enjoy anything new. So that's why I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of going to, mess around in Grand Theft Auto 3 for like the 8th time. That's going to be my cozy game. But in terms of like consuming something brand new that I have to like sit there and pay attention to, I don't really have the bandwidth for that right now. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do a little bit of, where I'm still trying to, kind of catch up with some of the old games, and also play some of the newer stuff as well too. And these are some like favorite titles of mine that I kind of missed out on. But Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I did not pick it up. I did not play it until right after Astrobot. And let me tell you this. One, it was a mistake not playing it for so long. And two, I kind of went back to back. I had said Astrobot's one of the best games I ever played. And then I played Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I'm like, good Lord, this is also one of the best games I've ever played. Like the game, it looks charming, it plays super well. It is honestly a technical marvel and masterpiece that it looks and plays as well as it does on the Nintendo Switch. That has absolutely impressed me and shocked me in every single way. Plus, there's been, much to my girlfriend's detriment, there's been stuff there that has just had me like dying laughing. Mainly there is a talking flower in there, and I just have to highlight this flower a little bit because you see it was throwing us off where there was like some voice acting in this mainstay Mario game, and they end up using different actors and actresses compared to, you know, who they usually use, but there was actually a little bit more talking in here, and one of them is this talking flower. If you haven't played the game, you might not know what I'm talking about, but if you have played the game, I feel like you might be annoyed by this, right? This talking flower, it's even to the point you can go into the settings and you can disable the talking flower, because you're just going through this Mario game and all of a sudden you hear a flower. I'm playing in English, but you hear a flower talking in English like the same way I'm talking. And the funny thing is, like, how do I put it? The delivery is not great. Like, it's so jarring whenever you hear the flower talk, but at the same time, due to how jarring it is, it somehow fits perfectly and kind of just like breaks up the game where it surprises you. And then after you're surprised, at least I end up laughing from it. And it does a little bit of fourth wall breaking. Like at one point, the flower says something like, if you want to do this, press the R button. What is R anyway? And that just had me dying laughing the first time I heard that. There's also like one part where like down in this like creepy type dungeon place and all that. And I think my girlfriend even made a comment about it. And you just hear the flower say, I love this place. And so then it threw her off because she at first thought it was me messing with her. And then it was the flower. And she's like, no, this is why can we stop this thing from talking? I'm like, no, this thing is great. So I've been referencing it much to her detriment, but it's been one of those things where it's like, you know, this should be ruining the game, but it somehow works really well. But if you're one of those people that are like, no, this is stupid, I don't want this flower to talk, it's annoying, guess what? You can disable it, which makes the game even better as well, too, because it does give you that accessibility option. The other game I have been playing, though, has been Super Mario Party Jamboree. I've played this a handful of times with some family, with my girlfriend, with friends as well, too. We've done offline, we've done online versions. There's a pro mode as well. And I'll say Super Mario Party Jamboree was probably the brand new game that I was looking forward to the most in 2024. Like when it was announced at the Nintendo Direct that it was announced at, this was the first game, like out of all the, I was like, okay, this is cool, interesting, okay, this is cool. But Jamboree, I was like immediately pre-ordering. No question about it. I am immediately going to pre-order this game because I want it as soon as possible. Because some of my best friends and I, we play remotely, so like we're online because we're physically in different places. But we usually have like a weekly game night, and a lot of times we end up choosing Mario Party because it's fun, it's something that we can laugh about. We have cried laughing at many things from the games, and then we just do it on the Switch. So we've played the N64 Mario Parties, but then we've also played a bit of Super Mario Party. We mostly played Superstars, but we were looking for something new because we've been playing Superstars for a while, and it wasn't getting any other content updates. So when this came out, I was like, guys, we all have to get this. We all got to play it here. I ended up grabbing a copy for one of my friends as well, too. Just because he wasn't sure when he was gonna get it, and I'm like, look, dude, you're one of my best friends. I love you, and I've loved, you know, being able to play games with you almost every week. So honestly, it's worth it for me getting this game for you because that just means I get to play more with my best friend. Like, no issue, nothing wrong with that there. And I'm going to get a lot more enjoyment out of this here from you enjoying this. So he appreciated that. But we've been playing it. It feels like, I will say, it is a slower Mario Party than I expected. So I would recommend, maybe like the only change is when you go into your game settings, I'd recommend changing the speed to fast, because if you keep it on normal, it is almost unbearably slow at times. because Super Mario Party was kind of a slower title. Mario Party Superstars definitely sped up the process, but this one kind of goes back to that slower one. Plus, the mini games that you play typically take a lot longer, so you're gonna have to allocate a little more time to it. And I say that because friends and I, when we play online, look, we're all adults. Some of us have other things we need to tend to, such as kids or significant others or pets or a combination of everything. So there's some times where there's friends that are just like, look, dude, I can play for an hour, but like I can't play for an hour 30 minutes. So that's how that goes, I guess, if you're playing as an adult there. But the mini games have been really fun so far. The functionality behind the game, like all the changes they've been making in terms of how it looks, how it plays, the UI changes and such, I've noticed so much of it, and they put a ton of love into this. It really is, in my opinion, a worthy, like final successor or like swan song of like the Mario Party games on the Switch. Because realistically, I don't think we're going to be getting another Mario Party on the Switch, but with Jamboree, I don't think we need to. I am looking forward to seeing what content and what updates and what additional things they might add in, just because I also don't want it to just remain stagnant like the original Super Mario Party, or kind of be at a thing where like Mario Party Superstars, you kind of run through it and such, and then you kind of just done, or you keep playing it but there's not that much else to do. It's nice to still have that progression on there is what I'm saying. So those have been the games I've been playing that I've had a lot of fun with. Out of a final thing though, now kind of transitioning over to another type of story that I do, I like to cover in these solo episodes a game store story, at minimum a game store story. For people who do not know about this, I used to work at a local mom-and-pop video game shop. There was 2 locations. They both ended up shutting down, though, years and years ago. So it wasn't a GameStop, it wasn't an EB Games or anything. But this is my first job that I had, and I had it for about 2.5 years when I was in high school. So it was when I was 16 to 18, and the reason why I left was because, well, I was going to college in another city. So that's what happened there. But I felt like this would kind of actually tie into a earlier topic I talked about, because we talked about PSN outages, and I don't know if I've shared this right. I think I've talked about this here and there, but I actually double checked. I think I did, at least. I'm going to trust my past self on here. And I don't know if I've really brought this up into Mario's Minute, at least as a fully fledged topic here. But this here, I want to talk about one in particular, which was the great PSN outage of 2011. Now, for people who do not know, this was not good for Sony. This was when the PlayStation 3 was their main system. It was before the Vita ended up releasing, and this is when PlayStation Network was free to use. And from what I recall, it was sometime in April, I want to say, that it ended up shutting down. And at first, we were thinking that it was Anonymous hacking them. I actually even have a historical video about this as well, too, called like PSN Anonymous outage and putting the day and all that stuff. But to my recollection, kind of trying to piece everything together, there was news like this when Anonymous was active and that they had hacked up Sony. And then I remember that at the time, like, and it's a little, I have to put the pieces together because, again, it's been like 13 years at this point, and a lot of it was also kind of anecdotal as well, too. But it was what I talked to with friends, what I talked to with customers, with coworkers, and just what I saw online. At first, Sony was saying, hey, we were hacked, but don't worry, nothing's been impacted. And then a few people started getting their credit cards stolen. And Sony came back and they said, hey, so we actually can confirm that there was a hack, there was an intrusion, and, some people's information was taken, but financial information should be fine. Then more people started coming out and said, hey, my credit card was just stolen, and I only put this credit card in one place online, and it's on my PlayStation Network account. That's the only place I have this credit card listed as a default option to pay for things. And my friend had his stolen too, and my other friend had hers stolen as well too. And we all have credit cards on our PlayStation Network accounts. So what's going on? So after enough of that happened, Sony kind of came out and they're like, hey, so everyone's credit card, anybody who had a payment method on file ended up getting their information. Their information is out there. So we recommend that you change your credit cards, you cancel, you get new ones, and we're now going to shut down PlayStation Network for a little bit just to do some maintenance. And I think they did shut it down for a little bit, and they tried to bring it back up at one point, and they had to bring it down again. And there's like, no, sorry, we have to shut it all down. We're going to work on seeing what's going on with the intrusion. We're going to rebuild the network, and we'll get back to you all. And this was kind of unprecedented because there's people, again, like my manager, I believe, he told me, he said, yeah, I had a credit card. The only place I had it was on PlayStation Network. And I noticed a few days after the hack ended up happening, I started having weird, mysterious purchases happen on there. And I remember for all of us at the end, like the reward for this, well, actually, I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Not, I think I am, but so we'll scale back a little bit. So this ended up going down for about a month. And I just want you all, if this is kind of foreign to you all, if you did not grow up around this or you didn't have a PS3 at the time, I just need you all to realize here, imagine if Valve, like if Steam went down for a month. Imagine if Xbox Live went down for a month. Imagine if Nintendo Switch Online went down for a month. Or imagine again if PlayStation Network went down for a month. I don't think people would be happy about this at all. And that's not to say that people were happy about it back then, but I felt like they were a little more tolerant and a little more patient back then. I feel like now if the network was down for like 3 days, people would be up in arms and everybody would be wanting to sell their PS5 and doing all of this, right? So it's interesting to see, I guess, where I believe at least people's patience kind of lied back then and where it lies now in that regard. But even then, it wasn't just the patience aspect of it. A lot of people were frustrated because they said this was a hack. Like, my information was taken. I'm not going to trust Sony after this. There's people who don't trust Sony with this. I always believed this, and this kind of solidified it for me. I do not put a payment method on any of my gaming accounts. Not Steam, not Epic, not Nintendo Switch Online, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, because of stuff like this. And I was kind of back from the day where I would see people get their accounts stolen and then their debit cards or their credit cards would get a lot of fees racked up on it. That was more what I saw. But when I saw this whole thing go down, I was like, nope, not doing it. And the only time I put a card into one of those accounts is really if I'm doing like one purchase. So if I'm doing one purchase, I can put my card on there, I can charge it, and then right after that purchase is done, I take it off. And it's because of stuff like this. So what ended up happening with this overall was I was in a little bit of a interesting position because I was working at a local mom and pop video game shop in 2011. And I just want to put to you all, I can at least talk from my own experience of what I was seeing. But in short, before this, we could not hold on to PS3s. Whenever we got a PS3, we would sell it. Guaranteed we would sell it. We dealt with used systems. We really didn't deal with new systems. People were really gunning after the 4 USB port PS3. For those who do not know the significance of them, that means those are the systems that out the gate, they have backwards compatibility for PlayStation 2 games. The earliest models have hardware backwards compatibility, which is the most accurate. The later ones have software backwards compatibility, which isn't as good as hardware, but it was still fine. There were issues with it though. And then afterwards, when they went to 2 USB ports on the PS3, those ones did not have backwards compatibility for PlayStation 2 games unless you purchase a PS2 game digitally through PlayStation Network. That was the only way you could play PS2 games on those systems without modifying it, of course. So most people ended up wanting to get a 4-port USB port PS3. We could not hold on to these things for a while. And I remember, I think at the top, we were like selling a CECHA model, so the original one, the 60 gig one. I think we were selling those for like $400. Granted, they did come out at $600, but I think we were selling them for $400. Let me tell you all, we went from not being able to hold on to a PS3 to being flooded with PS3s. After a few weeks, it wasn't immediate, but after maybe 2-3 weeks of the network being down, people just started trading in their PS3s in droves. And they were directly trading them. They were trying to trade them for Xbox 360s. And most people were able to do a pretty even trade because the PS3 was worth more at the time. So we would give them more money than they would for an Xbox 360 that was used. Plus, we gave them more because of credit, and they would use that credit on a 360. And the people who didn't buy 360s were mostly people who couldn't because we didn't have any Xbox 360s on hand. And this was not something that ended quickly. This was even for months, up until I left really, but it was for months and months and months after all of this happened. Like, don't get it twisted. Don't think all of a sudden when Sony fixed this, all of a sudden we sold our PS3s. No, we couldn't get rid of them. It got to the point we had like pretty much all the models. We had the backwards compatibility ones. We even dropped the price on them. I think we dropped the price on all of our PS3 SKUs, and especially like the expensive ones, the $400 ones, I think we dropped those by $100. And we still could not move them. Nobody wanted a PS3. We were flooded with PS3s, and we could not hold on to the Xbox 360 at all. And there were plenty of people who came in, they ranted about it, they were annoyed. So at least in that regard, I got to see a live sample size of it. People were not happy about it. People were quite pissed off. People were, and I can understand from that as well too. And for what we got from this, well, I think the next E3 that happened, Sony ended up issuing an apology on stage, and they also ended up giving some freebies as well too. To my recollection, for anybody who is impacted, they ended up giving out a month of PlayStation Plus, and then there was 4 games that you could get for free, but you could only redeem 2 of them. So I think I redeemed like Dead something. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a zombie shooter type game, and Infamous. And there was 2 other games. I can't remember what the other ones were. So you could get a free month of PlayStation Plus. You would get 2 games of, you know, their own choosing on there that you could get digitally for free. And there was also, what was the other thing? Oh, All Clear ID. I believe that was it. They gave everyone 1 year of All Clear ID fraud protection. It's kind of hard to believe that that was something that a gaming company gave out, and that was an expensive service to give out as well too. And then for anybody who actually had proof of their cards being tampered with and being stolen, I think Sony had additional things for them as well too. You just had to contact them if they did not contact you first. Them as in Sony. You had to contact them for, you know, the compensation, the extra benefits on there. I don't know what those benefits were because at the time I was only in high school. I did not have any payment method on that account, so that did not apply to me. But to kind of add some insult to injury, one of my best friends at the time, actually, he's one of my best friends now. He was a coworker then. We weren't really, he was more abrasive. I guess I'll put it like that. So we weren't really close back then. And I think I've told this part a little bit, but in short, he ended up trying to, you know, he had a PlayStation 3. So when it was available, he got online, he was able to sign to his account, and he tried to redeem. And he went to the free games and he was able to get 1. And then that was it. He wasn't able to get the PlayStation Plus. He wasn't able to redeem his second game. He was only able to get 1 game. He tried everything. He even contacted Sony. He told me he got on the phone. He talked to Sony support. He was on the phone for 2 hours. And by the end, they said, "We're sorry. We don't know what's going on with your account. We're really sorry you weren't able to redeem a second game or to get any of the other bonuses here. But there's nothing we can do." So in response, I don't know how much of a difference it really made to them because clearly they weren't calling him back or trying to get back to him or anything. But he essentially told them, "Hey, look, if you're not going to give me my other freebies that I'm entitled to, that's fine. Just let y'all know, I work at a local video game shop. We sell all the consoles, all the games, including the PS3. And from here on out, I'm going to do everything I can to steer anybody who wants to buy a PS3 to get one of your competitors' system. Have a nice day." And that was the end of that call. So you even ran into stuff like that too. So it still wasn't properly fixed up there. But, you know, I wonder how it was in that regard, because I will say even at the end, it was a little bit of a, you know, a slow burn. But in the end, even though, you know, the Wii was just selling like gangbusters, and then even though the Xbox 360 people were kind of rejoicing and like, you know, dancing on the competitor's grave and such with this, in the end, the PS3 still outsold the Xbox 360. And that's especially funny to me just because you got to remember with the 360 with its red ring of death, I'm sure you did too, but I knew many people who back then, they bought multiple 360s during its life cycle. So you had many Xbox 360 customers and consumers who went out and bought extra systems. This is not including the ones that they sent off to get repaired and such, because to my knowledge, that didn't count towards sales at all. Like, even if you shipped out your system to get repaired and you got a different one back, that did not count towards a sale. But there were people who were going to stores and buying additional 360s because they were failing. So that's how that goes. Anyways, that's about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was entertaining. And if you all were entertained, if you all enjoyed this episode here, I do like to pick a keyword or key phrase that is used in a comment on the video upload. So if you made it to the end of this episode, please leave this comment in a comment. Well, please leave this word in a comment on the video upload, and I'll know that you made it to the end. Typically, I do like to pick something off of my desk and kind of use that. So how about adapter? Let's go with that. Do you like adapters? Do you have some obscure adapters? Do you not like to use adapters if they can be avoided? Me personally, I'm one of those people where if I can kind of bypass using an adapter, I like to do that. One of my examples is, for example here, if I am using a device that requires a SD card, even if it is cheaper, I do not like to purchase a micro SD card and put it into a adapter and then adapt it to a standard full-size SD card spec. I don't like to do that. From my experience, at least, full-size SD cards are typically going to be more reliable, both like physically and in terms of content and such on there, than a micro SD card. Plus, if you use a micro SD card through an adapter, you're really just introducing another point of failure in there, because you might run into some weird disconnects or issues and what have you, and it could be from that adapter. So I'm one of those people, if I can choose between you, if I have something that uses SD cards, I'm going to try to gun for an SD card. I don't really want to do a micro SD card to SD card adapter in that. Although there's been a few times I've broken that rule, but still, I try and do my best with that. So if you use the word adapter in your comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. Either way, that is about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. If you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next month.